Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysAdmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysAdmin. And thank you. News, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's episode of the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and dancing along with the music is your old friend, Uncle Mark.
Woo! And look at me! I have a real mic.
He's all about his. He's all about his new mic. He's all about
Yeti
his new mic.
Nano. Yeti Nano. Um, full disclosure, this mic brought to you courtesy of our wonderful patrons. So thank you so much.
Yep.
Nate got tired of the nonsense from my old mic, so he's like, "Would you mind if the podcast bought you a mic?" I'm like, "No, that's fine." And then it appeared at my house within a day or two. It was
I
pretty
know.
exciting.
Amazon was super fast on that one. I ordered it,
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, 2-3 days, whatever. I'll let them know I ordered it tomorrow. And the next day, I'm like, delivered. Wait, what? Hey, Mark, there should be a mic on your porch.
Yeah. Well, I live in Northampton County, PA, and there's a lot of friggin' Amazon warehouses around here. Apparently,
Okay, that may be it.
we're like a hub, I think, because the different highways that intersect in this region
Oh, and
of
the
the
airport,
tri-state area, as Dr. Doofenshmirtz would say.
and the airport there in Allentown. I
The
bet that doesn't
airport,
hurt.
right? All that stuff. No, I'm sure it doesn't. So all that to say, I get a surprising amount of evil Jeff Bezos merchandise very quickly.
Yeah,
It's definitely a benefit,
yeah,
which is sweet.
definitely. Amazon has really gone crazy with how quickly they can get stuff out to people. Even, I don't want to sound like, I'm sure there's someone somewhere that's like, my Amazon packages still take 3 days, or I can order something that's here a day after.
It's
They don't.
almost same day.
They don't need the drones. They really don't. They talked about the drone delivery. They don't need it. I'm telling you.
Not in Northampton County, though.
Pretty darn quick.
Anyway, but yeah.
All right,
But
that's not.
We're not talking about.
Yeah.
No, that's not what we're talking about tonight, though.
Our topic tonight is not how fast Amazon can get Uncle Mark a mic. Our topic is actually about basically, when I pitched this to Mark and said, "Hey, how about we talk about office worker health?" He thought I meant people in office, and I realized that there's now a distinction between like in person or like work from home office and in like office building office.
So
But anyway,
I don't know if I could go that far. Obviously, I understood that
yeah,
the overall topic was about, trying to maintain a certain level of health when your job is what we would consider classic office work,
right.
right? Like I don't have a landscaping business. I don't work in construction, which is good because I'm terrified of heights. I actually get vertigo when I'm playing Elden Ring and my character has to do like some of the Mario stuff, jumping and I look down, I'm like, my stomach. Don't get me started on how I get in No Man's Sky in VR when I'm standing on the freighter and peering down at the planet.
Pretty much anything in VR will give you that feeling, right? But anyway, we're also not talking about Uncle Mark's vertigo. We're talking about, or heights or whatever. We're talking about trying to stay healthy, not just in IT, but in any job where you're strapped to a desk. And I don't mean strapped like physically, but you know what I mean. You have to be at a desk, at a computer. Maybe, I guess most desk jobs are computer jobs nowadays, right?
If your job requires strapping people to various furniture, hey, more power to you.
That's a whole different.
Some people pay good money for that service.
That's a whole different job right there. Whole different job. And I'm sure it has a whole different set of health risks.
Absolutely.
We cannot talk about talk about repetitive
stress industries there. Yeah, injuries there. Ay.
So, Mark already touched on this, right? If you work at a desk, which most people in IT work at a desk, if you have an IT job that does not make you work at a desk, I want to know what it is. Sure, like desk side support or like server room monkeys, they're not always at a desk, but everybody in IT probably spends a decent amount of time at a desk. And with the pandemic, a lot of those people brought their desks home, not physically, but their quote unquote desk, their workspace is now in their home. Whether it's in their living room, a home office, their kitchen table, whatever, right?
And I think you actually, we'll drill into that a little more, but one of the problems is that a whole bunch of people shifted to a working from home strategy, but they did not, through no fault of their own sometimes, do it properly.
Oh, yeah, right. They couldn't do it properly. Right? Yeah, exactly. And we'll touch on that too. But so obviously when you work in a job where you're moving around, where you're outdoors or indoors, but you're doing manual labor, right? There's a certain amount of built-in physical fitness that comes with that. You're burning calories, you're making your muscles do things, you're making your heart do things. There are, of course, other hazards that come along with a lot of those jobs, but again, we're not going to touch on that. But as a quote unquote office worker, you spend a whole lot more time sitting in a computer chair, staring at a monitor, typing on a keyboard, right, or moving a mouse around. And there's a certain
Or
amount,
something.
right? There's a certain amount of health risk there. Although folks who put themselves in more dangerous lines of work will laugh at us for saying there's health risks there, but there are, right? Sure, we're not going to have a building fall on our head, but you may end up with like severe back problems. Or honestly, one of the articles that I was reading today says that sitting for too long for too much of your life can actually lead to cancer, which is crazy. I never knew that, right? So anyway, yeah, right. Did you know that?
I want to see the date on that.
No, I agree. I said one of the articles say it. I'm not saying that it's backed by some weird research that I've read somewhere. But at any rate, it still isn't good for your spine. It's not good for your hips. It's not good for lots of things. So,
well, to be fair, carrying 80 pounds of tiles up a ladder to
Yes.
a roof over and over again ain't so hot for your spine either.
that is true.
Right.
That is true.
So I think, well, what I think we just need to acknowledge is every job, as you point out, does have an inherent risk.
Yes.
And people who work in the trades will often complain that it's something that it's very difficult to keep doing long term because,
Yep.
especially prior to nowadays, like nowadays, there's a lot more safety rules, there's better equipment, there's better practices. But if you did like construction stuff in the good old days when men were men, you actually could destroy your body by the time you're in your 30s.
I have a friend. His stepdad was basically forcibly retired because of an accident at work. He worked construction, and he had like some sort of a load of steel girders fall on him, like literally on him. He was in like severe like ICU style hospital care for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
He made it through it. He walks with like a cane now, I think, but he was already a little older,
Oh, yeah.
so he retired because of it. But yeah, like that's a very real thing. And can you
I
hear
think
the
we all
dogs?
know multiple. I think we all know multiple. Yeah, I can hear them.
They're howling.
They don't want
That's
you to do
awesome.
construction work.
They're
Let's see what
freaking
this.
howling.
Let's see what this YouTube is that Josh has posted.
Uh-oh. To be fair,
Oh, to be fair. Okay.
chairs, keyboards, etc. Yep. Right. So basically, to recap, right? As an office worker, generally means that you're indoors. You are not performing many physically intense tasks, which means that your body starts to atrophy, right? Means you normally burn less calories throughout the course of a day. You probably take in more calories because it's a lot more convenient to just reach for snacks when you're sitting at a desk. And you're not out in the sun, which, yes, being in the sun too much has its own hazards, but getting some sunlight is really good for your body, right? Your body needs that. Like I said, it's a lot easier to reach for food. If you're a work from home worker, it's really easy to walk to the fridge that has a lot more food that is readily accessible to you in it. Whereas if you're an in-office worker, generally the fridge is full of stuff that isn't necessarily all yours to take. So you have a bit of built-in limitation there.
I'm going to counterpoint on some of the dietary stuff.
Uh-huh.
All right. So let me disclaim a thing or two.
Mm-hmm.
I believe diet is something that you either are going to be paying attention to or not, regardless of where you work.
Yes.
And there are phases of my life where I use my fitness pal to track what I eat to try and maintain a certain calorie range. What I can say is that when I am in my home office, in my house, and eating primarily food that I have prepared or that we have bought, even if it's pre-prepared, it's generally decent as far as serving sizes and everything else. It's much easier for me to control that stuff in my house than when I travel, either back when I was at Merck and going into the office, because the food there was either like snack machine garbage
Mm-hmm.
or run out for like burgers and fries and things like that,
Yep.
or more calorie dense food, eating out where you don't necessarily have a control of the calories and stuff.
Yeah.
And definitely when I travel now for Red Hat, in the times when I have been counting, I basically just throw up my arms and I'm like, okay, this is just during this trip, I'm just not counting because it's too hard.
It really is.
So,
When you're eating
so,
out,
so
it is a lot harder to keep track of the calories.
my personal experience from a dietary perspective is, well, you can have a house that has bad food in it. I have found personally that when I'm trying to watch what I eat, it's a better experience for me at home.
Yeah.
That's one guy's opinion there.
Yep. No, right.
But
So
that does require thought. It
Yeah.
requires self-control.
it
But for me, that actually is a plus
it
on the
definitely
staying healthy.
it comes
Be-
down to
if I do remote work.
your own lifestyle and your own willingness to eat well, right? You're right. When you're at work or when you're traveling for work, it's a lot harder to find healthy options, right? So when I worked
It's
at the
you know-
college, usually when we ate out, there are a ton of eating options in Easton where I used to work. But none of them are, well, there are healthy options. None of them are Burger King and McDonald's style options. There are somewhere in the middle. There's like pubs
yeah.
and beer at the ready, right?
Yeah, but Nate, it's not even whether or not it's air quote healthy, because the way you lose weight is you burn more calories than you take in.
Yeah.
And in my experience, when
Well-
I travel and I'm hitting restaurants and stuff, I don't know what the actual accurate calorie count of stuff is.
Right,
And
but
so that's where
if-
things go off the rail.
If you and I consume the same amount of calories, and the calories I
Mhm.
consume are full of saturated fats, and the calories that you consume are not, you're generally going to be healthier than me, because like your heart health is going to be better than me. Weight wise, we might
Right,
be similar, but there's
I'm
going to be lots of
talking-
other
yeah.
carry-ons, right?
Okay, and I'll give you that.
Yeah. So healthier in that is like, comparing a nice prepared
is it
restaurant
the right
meal to
vitamins
McDonald's,
and minerals
right?
and stuff?
Versus comparing a salad to a well prepared
Yeah. No, I hear
restaurant
you.
meal. But anyway, it was you. Hold on. There. Yeah. Streamlabs just told me that it dropped and came back. Somebody in the
Alright.
stream, tell us if you can see us. It looks like you should be back.
Papa, can you hear me? Yeah, I think what we've done here is we've moved into a working from home versus office.
Yeah,
when
we
in
kind of
fact, it's really the style of work that I think
Yeah.
is your whole point.
Yeah.
And so what can we do as IT people to try and be as healthy as possible regardless of where we're sitting?
Right. So we covered kind of the obvious impacts of sitting at a desk.
I hear
all the
your
time.
dog's clear as day, by the way.
That's great. Freaking dogs. It's just
Normally
it's a great
it's
night,
my
folks.
dogs.
You're all gonna have to live with it. My gosh, what are they going on about now?
Come
All
for
right.
the podcast and you get all the bonus content.
Yeah, right. Then there's a bunch of not so obvious things that impact us from a health perspective, right? Things like sitting all the time is just plain out bad for you. There's lots of negative impacts. We kind of already think it's better, is also not necessarily better. There has to be a balance, right?
So what do we do? Do we squat?
Yeah, right. You have to
That's
kind of
that's sort of in between sitting and
Yeah.
standing.
Yeah, right. It's my point is it's not binary. It's you should sit sometimes and stand sometimes, right? Stand a couple hours in a well-supported chair, sitting in it for 8 to 10 hours a day, probably not the right choice. You're going to want to stand up and move around.
Well, and I'll tell you, that's where things like if you've got a device, like a smartwatch or
Yep.
some other thing, that you gamify it.
Right?
Because my watch reminds me if it's 10 minutes to the hour and I haven't stood up and moved, it's like, hey, don't forget to stand up.
Hey, you lazy guy, get up and move around.
And that's when I'll stand up, and if I've got dishes or whatever down here, that's when I'll bring them up to the
Yep.
kitchen.
Yep.
Or I'll just go upstairs and see what the characters are up to because my wife runs the Nazareth Red Hat Daycare Center. So Finley Knoll might be up there, and I can see how she's doing.
The tiny knoll.
The tiny knoll, right? Sadly, not D&D.
Yeah.
But yeah. So standing, and the days where I intentionally stand every hour, I will say at the end of the day, I tend to feel better, even if I've done no other intentional exercise, like go for a walk or something like that.
So we'll talk about this more further down in the little list here, but I've basically intentionally built myself a routine every day that not necessarily requires, but it very strongly promotes me moving, right? Getting up and moving around, because it's just what I'm used to, and if I miss it, I actually notice and I feel it, right? So, but we'll talk more about that in the what can we do about all this. But I did want to touch on one more thing.
And your character running in a video game doesn't count.
Oh, damn,
that is fake cardio.
You've ruined the whole thing for me now. That was
no.
it. That was it. Anyway.
Oh, no.
But there's one more thing that is not quite as apparent, or not being out in the sunlight, maybe even not seeing the people that you care to see, can have a mental impact on you, right? So if you work in the office, like, it could be that you're all about your family and you really, really miss them when you're in the office. Or maybe you've got coworkers that you can't stand, Mr. like speakerphone guy or whatever.
That asshole worked at Merck diagonally from me.
Yeah. I think I've talked about the guy that we had an open office floor plan in the office that we were in when I finally left the college.
Worst floor plans ever.
One guy, even though we were open office floor plan, speakerphone. I wanted to smash his phone some days. Anyway, but there's also, in one of the articles, it's got these like 24 or 20 or something headings of things.
Is that the real dark one? Yeah.
I don't know. Is it the dark one? It says how your office job is destroying your health. And there's one, because talk about clickbait, right? One of the headings in there, and again, I'd love to see the statistics on this, says that motivational meetings can actually depress people, and I find that hilarious.
They can. They can be awful.
Because one, it's the exact opposite of what the meeting is supposed to accomplish, and two, it's exactly the sort of meeting that I would say every IT person I've run into hates the most.
So,
the team building exercise and the, whatever.
I don't know. Mandatory team building exercise.
Right. Oh yeah, if it were a team building exercise where we all went out to the gun range, I'd have a lot of fun. But if it's one of these where it's like they bring in a motivational speaker and they show you how to find your personality type, and they teach you about how an acorn planted in the ground can grow to a mighty oak tree. Yeah. Anyway,
bite me.
we've had a couple of those when I was at the college. Higher ed is great for stuff like that. Eventually, the IT folks started having our own little retreat, and it was much better then.
Right. So we had some folk. Right now, I'm managing the Southeast team, but there are folk who used to work on the Southeast team, and we wanted to get people together. It was actually led by Captain Morgan, who's no longer a TAM on my group.
Yeah.
And he ran this hilarious Family Feud style Wordle game. Oh my! It was just really it was a lot of fun.
He's talked about bringing that to our Friday meetings.
Oh, it's friggin' hilarious. And it was one of those meetings where people were invited but under no obligation to attend, and we all, we some of us brought booze. And some people didn't feel like playing, and that's okay. We didn't guilt them into it. They just got to sit back and chuckle at the expense of us who were trying to solve these Wordle puzzles.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun, right? And so meetings like that, where they are put together in a very organic manner, where they don't feel like fake garbage, and where where it's legitimately totally optional to attend. I think those can be helpful to boost morale.
It's actually fun is the key, right? It's not something
fun.
Where you're like, oh, I don't really want to do this. I know it's supposed to be fun, but it's just not what I'm into, right?
Right. Like whenever we did square dancing in gym when I was in high school.
Yeah,
That was like
right.
everybody in Tom's River. Now maybe it's different in other places, but everybody in Tom's River friggin' hated having to do square dancing when it was time to do that in gym.
And yet you had to do it anyway.
You had to do it.
It's
So
all about
motivational
building
meetings are like
character.
yeah, to hell with that.
It's, it's like the square dancing from your high school days.
Motivational meetings are high school square dancing in Ocean County, New Jersey. It was the worst.
That's hilarious.
Maybe in Pennsylvania it's different. I don't know. There's a
Yeah.
lot more tractors here, but
yeah,
Tom's River, not so much.
Maybe there
You guys have Cotton Eye Joe.
there
That
has
seems
been
to be like a little anthem
there
here.
has been an odd amount of square dancing in my kid's school now that I think about it.
Oh, and look, Jay Scar found his wife square dancing, so clearly my background, my Jersey background, thug life, incompatible with square dancing.
So anyway, we talked quite a bit about the mental impact of being in an office. Speakerphone guy. What about work from home?
That's where you're dealing with different personality types, right?
Yep. So in my mind, right, there's a certain amount of recharge that happens when you get away from your house, right? Because you're away from your mundane day-to-day chores. And believe it or not,
Yeah.
like this may sound terrible, right? But there is fact to back this up. Sometimes when you spend too much time with your spouse or your family, you start to resent those people, right? And being away from them, even get that built into their day, right?
Yeah,
So-
well, when my kids were much younger and I had to go to the office, I told myself that it wasn't so bad because it was the gentle embrace of work.
Right.
Um,
But then there's the other side of it where the place where you're doing business is also the place where you spend all of your time. So you have to put up like mental boundaries. This is work and this is not. This time is work, this time is off work, right? Like I spend a lot of time in this room that I'm in right now. I podcast from this room, I play games in this room, I watch TV in this room. There's a TV up on the wall and a recliner over here. I also work from this room, right? So there's got to be boundaries, right? Whether, like, is it time for work? Yes. Okay. Boot up the work laptop. Time for work? Shut down the work laptop. I know you keep yours on, and some people do that. For me, it's a lot easier to have it off unless there's something off hours that I need a Linux machine for, which is what I'll sometimes do with that. But most of the time,
yeah.
it's completely off, disconnected from work. The only thing that's still connected to work is my email on my phone, just because that's a pain in the ass to turn off. But my point is, it's hard. You have to have those boundaries when you're working remotely. It's really easy when you work in an office because you're just like, okay, I worked 20 minutes late, whatever, but I left. I got in my car. I drove home. Right? When you got home, you're no longer in work mode, or you shouldn't be.
Well, so back before work from home was a thing, I still worked with people who had no work and life boundaries because
Yes.
they would be working.
Yep.
They'd either stay at the office really late or they would get home and they'd be working. So I don't buy necessarily. I think there's this perception with too many people, and I realize, talking to IT people, we know better, but there's this perception that people, need to be in person to have the most effective working relationships. I was managed by someone in Canada who I maybe saw her once a year,
Mm-hmm.
and that was again prior to Red Hat and prior to working from home really becoming a thing, and it worked out fine. It was effectively remote work for her. And when I pivoted from going to the office all the time to working primarily out of my house and maybe going into the office once or twice a week on paper, which really worked out to once or twice a month.
Yeah.
As far as my relationship with the deal and my manager didn't change at all, because we communicated, we had always been used to communicating at two different ends of a TCP/IP connection. So I don't buy that we need to be in an office to have proper mental health. In fact, I would argue that being in an office can sometimes drive people up the friggin' wall.
Yes.
There's a reason that Office Space resonates so well with a lot of IT
so
people.
that's one thing that is difficult, right? And it's one of those dynamics that you have to deal with when you're in an office, is that you're put into an office building with people you may not like.
Have you ever had somebody ask you on a Monday and you're looking a little depressed? Oh, does someone have the case of the Mondays?
Uh-huh.
No. And if they did that, they'd get their ass kicked. I probably misquoted it,
Yeah.
but like some of the worst part of working in an office are the coworkers.
Yeah.
Because some of them are assholes.
Yeah. Now,
in fact,
if you're
most
on,
of them,
if you're
most
on a,
of them, yeah.
if you're on a good
I would not intentionally spend time with.
if you're on a good team, generally there's some camaraderie there, and you generally
There can
like the people you work with. You could, right? One of the reasons I left the college was because that dynamic had changed for me. When I started
Right.
there, it was great. I like everybody that I worked with. I would consider friends. In fact, I'm still friends with several of them, right? But that dynamic changed as some of those people moved on to better positions, or in some cases got fired from the college. And new people started coming in. They weren't of the same mindset, and all of a sudden that team dynamic started to fall apart. And I was miserable for a while, right? So it's really a good thing that I left there and came to Red Hat.
Yeah. Who's one of those assholes? That's Mark. Oh, no, but okay, but you're not plan, right? And
Yeah, right,
you'd be one of the good ones. I'm assuming that's Mark the Tam there. I'm having a hard time reading.
No, that's Mark with a K, one of our
one of our sponsors.
not
Or
the
one of
Mark,
our- one
not
of
the
our-
Mark you're
one of
thinking
our
of.
long-term listeners. The other Mark with the K.
But he's admitting that he's one of those assholes. So maybe, I don't know. All right,
No,
so
and-
anyway,
Yeah.
Right.
And there are plenty of people, like when I worked in an office, that I did like and I did get along with, and you socialize. But I got to be honest, when the recruiters reach out to me, I'm pretty happy where I am. But there's three demands. First, I give them the actual amount of money that they need to pay me to pull me away from Red Hat.
yeah.
That's a big number.
Mhm.
Some of you know this already. That my 3-point plan on making LinkedIn recruiters go away. So I give them the actual amount of money they have to pay. I then say, also, I don't work after hours or weekends, and I never want to have to go into an office again, ever.
Right.
And then they never bother me. I did have one guy push back and say, well, the client, it is not a remote position. And I'm like,
Then
okay,
you don't meet one of my requirements. Goodbye.
you don't meet one of my requirements. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like to occasionally go to the office. I actually had a lovely trip to Raleigh at the end of March.
But it's a choice, not a requirement.
It was
That's
a
the
choice.
key.
I got to give a presentation to some peers about the TAM service. I got to take some of my guys out to lunch with some other nerds. I got some quality time with other Red Hat TAM manager folk. But it was cool because it was special.
Yeah.
Just like how when I go to Manhattan occasionally to our office here, or when we do our monthly Philly gathering, it's on demand being in the office when I feel like it.
Got to start that stuff up again.
We're going to, but to me, the argument that people can't be happy unless they're in the office, like 3 to 4 days a week,
or
no, that's garbage.
Or maybe that they can't be productive is maybe I think what a lot of employers think.
Well,
And all these people were forced to work from home or not work at all, right? And most businesses didn't choose that. They chose, okay, fine, you can work remotely, but you'll be back in the office in 2 weeks.
I'm going to
See how that panned
say
out.
the last dozen years I have spent primarily working remotely because
Yeah.
I had
Mhm.
I went full remote the last several years at Merck, and I've been a remote since 2015 at Red Hat.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, even in the quasi progressive world of higher ed, we were work from home 1 day a week when I worked there, and that's changed now, and a lot
That's
of employers
teasing.
have changed that now.
one day a week is
It
almost
is.
abusive.
It is. It
It's
is.
like
Now, our
here's a taste.
our hope was that it would expand to more, and it also turned into, instead of taking days off for stuff like a dentist appointment, I was able to work remote and just take 20 minutes away to get my dentist appointment done, right? Which worked out really
It's
well
a
for the
fast
college.
dentist.
Okay, well, the point is, like, 45 minutes to an hour away instead of taking the whole day off, right?
No, I'm tracking. I'm
Yeah.
tracking.
So anyway, we've talked about a bunch of the negatives. We touched on a couple of the things that you can do to combat these. We've also talked about some positives. But I wanted to sort of summarize, like, what can you do about a lot of the negatives that we pointed out here? And really, to me, one of the biggest ones is just keeping yourself moving, right? So it's really easy, especially when you're there. Start working, never leave it, go back over there, right? Assuming somehow I ate in the middle there, right? But I don't. I force myself to not do that. Every day on lunch, I'm either out for a walk, even in the rain or the cold, right? Like a lot of people, that's an really easy excuse to not get outside and go for a walk, unless it is an outright thunderstorm, downpour, or like 10 degrees outside. I'm out for that walk. I just bundle up or take an umbrella.
Better about the walking.
And it's not like I go 10 miles. My daily routine is like 1.5 miles, right? But it's something, right? It helps keep your heart healthy. It helps keep you moving. It helps your muscles not sort of atrophy as you're sitting in a desk all the time. And it has the mental benefit of getting away from work, right?
You also get to say hi to all the puppers.
You get to say hi to dogs. You get to see your neighbors. Now, again, it all depends on the
I
region you're living
generally
in.
I generally throw a playlist on us.
Oh yeah, I usually listen to audiobooks or music while I'm walking. But I put in one earbud so I can still hear out of the other one. And people I never would have stopped to talk to say hi. Especially once they've seen you doing it for weeks. If you're walking the same route or a
You get to know the other walkers.
Yeah, right. People start to say hi. You start to get friendly with people, and it never hurts to know your neighborhood a little bit better, right? There was another piece I wanted to mention there. What was it? I got going. There was another side to that. Oh, the mental aspect of just getting away from work. And I would even argue that, especially if you're remote, it would be really helpful, and Mark, I hope you're listening, if management were to endorse the idea that their remote workers stay active, right? Even if that means you join the team call, that once a month team call or whatever, while you're out on your walk, right? Now, I get that that's not always practical, and I wouldn't recommend doing it in front of customers or clients or whatever. But, for things like purely internal calls, if you're walking, what's the harm there, right? Because even if your day is back to back to back to back meetings, I still think it's really helpful to be able to get out in the middle of the day and just kind of clear your head and get out and get away from the desk.
Yeah, and I think some of that's going to depend on the maturity of your company.
Yeah.
Like me, I trust that my guys, my nerds, are adults.
Yep.
So if they feel they can attend a call with me or whatever, and they can do it while walking, I'm going to trust their judgment on it until it doesn't work.
Yep. And then the other thing, and this actually came up in chat on YouTube, Alex commented that you can do things like get away from your desk and just kind of stretch, right? Some people are into yoga or whatever. Personally, I'm getting older, right? I start to have all the aches and pains and whatever that an older person starts to get when they're in their 40s.
When your body punishes you for such atrocities as looking to the left or standing up.
Somebody told me, who was it? Just the other day, they're like, yep, the check. Yeah, put some tape over that light. Just being able to stretch yourself out in the morning or even throughout the day, that's kind of weird to do at work. People will look at you funny, like, what are you doing, man, right? This is the workplace. You can't do that kind of thing here. At least I could imagine people feeling less comfortable at doing that in their workplace. Whereas at home, no one sees what I'm doing in here. I could be working in my pajamas or with no shirt on or whatever, right? No one has to know. Stepping away from my desk to stretch, who cares? No one knows. Yeah. No one cares.
No, you're absolutely right. And that kind of goes along with the whole just get up every so often.
Yeah.
And if you need, like, again, I can zone out and time doesn't. I'm not tracking time, so that's why having the device that reminds me,
Yes.
hey, fatty, it's time to get up.
Yeah, and
You know,
that's a valid thing, right?
is a good plan.
Most, or whether it's something more advanced like an Apple Watch or an Android
The
Wear
Fitbits
device.
would nag me.
Yeah,
The Fitbits
exactly.
for years now have had
Right.
the stand up nag. It's
Right.
one of the
It really is. So that's a valid thing, and something that goes along with keeping moving, at least when you're in an office, is going to the quote unquote water cooler and just having a conversation with your coworkers. Right. Even if you don't like all of
if
them,
they're not assholes.
just getting away from your desk, having a conversation that may or may not have anything to do with actual work. Maybe you're just talking about the weather, talking about, whatever, making small talk with people. It's a good way to get away and kind of reset your brain. I can't tell you the number of times I'd be stuck in some kind of a crazy problem at work and can't figure it out, and I just like go over to one of the web developers that I was good friends with, and we'd go for a quick walk around the block, and I would come back. Maybe I'd bounce ideas off of him. Maybe he'd have no idea what I'm even talking about because it just is outside of his wheelhouse. And I'd come back and have a solution because I just like talked about it, right? I don't know
On
if
the
you've
other
ever
hand,
done that, right?
on the other hand, he's totally screwed because he was trying to figure something out and you totally broke his focus and concentration.
Right. Took
But
over
it's
the team
okay.
there. Yeah, it's okay there.
That's one of the bad parts of being in an office. I honestly, and I actually do tend to pop in on people when I'm in an office, so I'm going to sound like a little bit of a hypocrite there. But I have a hard time focusing on the job itself when there's so many wonderful people to distract me. Because
Yeah.
I'm sort of I'm extroverted when I want to be.
Yeah,
And when I'm in an office, I'm like, oh, I'm in an office. So my usual mode is work from my house. So because I'm in an office, I tend to lean towards the social aspect of it.
right. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Be cognizant of your snacking. It's really the best way I can put that, right?
I mean, and that
eat-
that should be the case regardless of where you are.
Yeah. So eat because you need calories, not because you're sitting at your desk and you're bored about it, right? Yeah, that's a fair statement. You're not drinking enough. Really, you aren't. There's a
Yeah,
reason there's a water cup on my desk all the time. I wash this every couple days. It's always full of water. I'm always drinking it, and I still feel like I don't drink enough water.
No, a huge majority of people do not drink nearly enough water.
Yeah,
You got to
They
be
make-
very.
they make those bottles with the lines on them, not just measurement
Yeah.
lines, but they say like this is how much you should be drinking in a day, and they'll even have lines like you should be here by noon. You should be here by 6 p.m. And like when you get here, refill, that kind of thing, right? But yeah, it's very much like, okay, I need to drink 2 of these things a day is a lot easier than I need 64 ounces a day or whatever the current standard is. It's probably like 248 by now.
And the good part about drinking the amount you're supposed to is you have to pee a lot more, which means you're going to be standing
It
up.
means you get up.
So that's good.
So going along with the get up and talk to a coworker statement, for remote workers,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have like, things people are excited about, things people want to talk about, instead
Like
of
3D printing.
right, instead of what's the status of a project or whatever, right? So I found them very valuable. This was when I came to Red Hat. It was the first place I'd ever been to that made it a point to get together just for socialization, right? At least as frequently as we do, right? Like there's a weekly meeting that you founded or helped found. That
Into what essentially is its current form.
right.
It used to be just for new technical account managers, and it was half training and half socialization, and we just
Yeah.
and there's some rules, and they're all they're all good rules. You're not allowed to attend unless you're invited if you're a manager.
Right.
The calls are never recorded, so it's a safe place if you need to vent a little bit. Things will not be held against you.
And
Now,
people
obviously,
vent.
if you if you get egregious and you get insulting and abusive, then obviously people might complain and stuff. But
Oh yeah,
It,
right.
it,
Yeah, you still have to
but
be a civilized human being.
right, but they are. I I am a big fan of the water cooler call, and again, this is pre-pandemic. All were remote,
Yeah.
and it's a way to working out of another office.
Look, that call has introduced me to more folks within Red Hat that I don't think I ever would have met otherwise. And those are
Right.
contacts that are valuable. When I have a question about something I know they're good at, I know people I can go to, which is a very important thing, especially as a TAM, as you know.
Now, yeah. So there are. I know there's services out there that companies can use to like link up people randomly inside of your own company. There,
Like
a lot of them are targeted more for
like
like
speed
one-on-one.
dating.
Like it's sort of like it's more like it. The metaphor is more like get a cup of coffee together
Yeah.
virtually.
Uh-huh.
Um,
That seems weird.
and well, it might seem weird, but Red Hat employ now does their own version of it called Red Hat Connect. And again, any company could do this where you voluntarily opt in and the algorithm just fires off periodically. And I
Sets
have
up a meeting.
met I have met about 6 or 7 Red Hatters I would have never run into
Yeah.
otherwise. I've got a call scheduled. It's either Monday or Tuesday with somebody.
I mean
It picks 2 people,
that's
and
valid.
one of them's the you're going to help.
Yeah.
Here's some questions, suggest topics,
I'll say
and again,
that's good as an opt-in thing.
it
Right?
is.
Like
It is. I
if I was forced to do that, I would hate it.
oh no
I would
no
hate every
yeah
second of it. Like I don't
no
want to meet this person. I don't care. They're like a sales exec from Abu Dhabi. I have no interest in knowing this person, but now I have to.
yeah oh no yeah anything like that. The social type things for work. I think we got to respect that there are some people, and this is just the way they're wired. They really want a minimal social footprint at work, whether it's in the office or remote. They don't care about getting close to coworkers. They really don't have any interest in it. They just want to be left alone to do their job, and that's
Right.
okay.
So there's people at that end of the spectrum, and then there's people that want to know everybody. I'm somewhere in the middle. I want to build a
Right.
naturally like organic network of people, right? Like people that are interested in things that I'm interested in. People that, may be interested in similar topics technically or work related, right? I don't I'm not opposed to meeting everybody in the company at some point, but I don't necessarily feel like I want to go out of my way, and I don't feel like that's valuable. You know what I mean? It's just
I
me.
think
It's just the way I
I
am.
think okay, and I get where you're coming from, but I will say that I've met some folk who do a completely different. They're like in a completely different part of the business, as far from being a TAM as possible. Don't knock that until you try it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're some kind of crazy person for doing it. I'm just saying it doesn't sound like it would be a thing I'd be comfortable with. That's all.
Yeah,
Anyway,
agreed. Just like when I first started walking, I wasn't comfortable going more than a few blocks, and now I can walk significantly longer.
I see what you
You
did
gotta
there.
those are muscles you got to work on, right?
I see what you did there.
Or you don't have to. You
Yeah,
don't have to.
yeah.
I'm just like I tell my son. My son is very, and he's 19 for crying out loud. But he's hesitant to try food that he thinks he might not like.
Mm-hmm. I've
And
been
I'm like,
there.
dude, just taste it.
It's not going to
And
kill you.
if you hate it, spit it out, and I'll never ask you to try it again.
Yep.
But I think you might actually like it, and sometimes he actually has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and look, there's my watch telling me I should stand up, but
I'm
I'm not
already
doing
standing. And
Well,
that's a valid point, right? So one of the things we talked about is sitting all day or standing all day, and both of those are not so great. I have a desk that is easy to switch from one to the other. In fact, I hit a button
yeah, I've
and
got one that I
down it
do manually.
down it goes.
Doesn't use a button. Yeah, nobody wants to see your crotch.
Yeah, well,
Stop. Okay.
that's why I'm putting it back up now.
Alright.
Then hit the other button.
It's
Back
also
up
why
it
I'm not.
goes, right?
It's also why I'm not standing up. Although I am wearing pants. So
Well, that's good. That's a good start. I did put links to some of the stuff I've purchased to improve my my work area. We didn't even talk about typing all day and carpal tunnel. That's another
Well,
thing.
yeah.
You can improve that with an ergonomic keyboard. I have a mouse that I find very comfortable. right? It's one of these with the trackball on the thumb. Not everybody likes those, but I do. It helps with the repetitive stress of your elbow thing from moving a mouse around. I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but I did at one point, and this helps
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, this is my work mouse. It's weird looking,
Oh
but your
yeah, but
hand rests on it
but
very
it puts
comfortable.
your hand kind of more vertical than horizontal, and
Yeah,
this does the same thing. I don't know if you can see this crazy like little razor thing
I
that's on
can.
it, but
That
that's
looks
what
very similar.
that's
Yeah.
supposed to do too. It puts your hand in a more natural position. Same thing with the keyboard I have, which you can't see, but it's raised in the center and it's split so I can position it how my arms are naturally
Yeah.
positioned
I
instead of
try I try to be super careful about being at the like I have two different chair heights, one for the gaming rig which I'm using now and one for my work desk when I'm sitting.
yeah,
My work desk is also it's adjustable. I can stand at it
right,
if I decide I want to.
right.
One thing I want to point out, we touched on it. Um I think if possible, and you sort of talked about this already, but it is super important if you're working remote in any significant manner, you do need, if you have the real estate for it, your own space.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people who did not gel with working remotely did things like trying to work at the kitchen table or trying to work on the couch or work in their bedroom.
There
I will tell you, I can undock my laptop very easily, but when I decide I'm going to just work like in a weird place, comfortable for any length of time.
right. Right. Yeah,
And
on nice days I'll take my laptop and sit on the front porch in the lawn furniture. After about an hour, it's like, boy,
yeah,
this chair's not comfortable. My butt's going numb. My arms are in a weird position. My hands feel kinked from typing on this little keyboard. I'm gonna go back to my office. I know it's a beautiful day out, but
yeah, so I
I'm
got the
so much
sliding
more
doors.
comfortable there.
I got the sliding doors right out to my patio, and I
Yeah,
have taken the laptop out to that table every so often, but it's the same thing.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is cute. It's nice. Now, the doors are nice because I can look at nature while I'm working.
There you go.
Like I'm not in a box.
I
Like,
have a window right over my desk here, which now has a blind on it because the glare was too much. But I open up that blind, I can see out to the backyard, watch the kids playing. When the pool was set up, I could make sure they weren't drowning. You know, valuable things.
yeah. How many heads are above the water? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's see. We have
But
two
I think,
children. I see two heads. We're good.
yeah. But but having a proper home office is really important. It ideally should be a room that you can shut the door and not be disturbed. Working in a common area, yeah, your family needs to learn boundaries, man. Or you need a good lock.
Yeah. Well, there is a lock. I
Um,
just don't use it that often.
well, that's on you then.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Um, but having the ability to have that secured area where sometimes you have those conversations you need to have with coworkers, or you need some quiet. Now my kids are all out of, well, my oldest daughter lives with us, but the rest of my kids are out of the house at this point.
Yeah.
When they were younger, though, I did have my home office set up on one end of the family room, and they didn't and we had another room that was more of a casual playroom. So I was able to create that isolation, like when they were home from school in the summer and stuff. But,
Yeah.
you know, what I will say is that at the end of the workday, um, other than when we play Valheim together, I do the majority of my gaming, not on the gaming rig, but on my PS5 because it's in the other room and it's my couch. And it's a mental separation from being in my office.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the only other gaming I really do in my office tends to be virtual reality stuff.
Which
And
doesn't
then it
feel
doesn't
like it's in
matter what
your
room
office.
I'm in. I don't feel like I'm in my office still.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I definitely am not a fan during the pandemic, when like all the scouting meetings and all the gaming we would do, like the
Yep.
D&D stuff. I was in this office like friggin' 14 hours a day, or however,
Yep.
actually probably worse than that.
Yep.
And I started to hate it. Like the stuff that's supposed to be fun just feels like an extension of my work day. It's yet another
Yep.
virtual meeting. That's kind
Yeah.
of one reason that I just kind of stopped doing we stopped doing the gaming
Yeah.
virtually.
If we could find time, we should pick that up again. Man, you had a great campaign going there.
Yeah, we probably will, but I and maybe now that I'm not spending as much time virtually, even if we want to make that virtual, whatever, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. I mean,
Right, but
yeah,
so my encouragement would be that if I think remote work is really here to stay, especially for IT folk.
yeah,
But it is the kind of thing where if you have the space in your house or wherever you live, setting up that
yes,
dedicated work area has made all the difference for me.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Even before I came to Red Hat, I had turned this into my home office. I painted it. I made it mine. It wasn't just a room that I stuck a desk in. I actually put effort into making it a space I wanted to be in. And like I said, with the TV and the recliner and all my stuff in here, I might spend the majority of my day in here, even when the work day is over, and it doesn't feel like work. Like you said, you were having a problem with that. I don't really seem to have that because I have that disconnect where the work laptop gets turned off.
It's
now
not
it's my fun space, right?
it's not necessarily that it felt like work, it's just I felt like I was just doing the same thing for too long every day.
Yeah. No, I agree though, right? There was a point where it's like I really don't want to be on another virtual meeting, and we were doing DEF CON 610 remote, and we saw attendance dwindle a lot because everybody else had the same problem. It's like I don't want to be in another online meeting. I just don't want to. I'd rather sit and stare at the wall than be on camera again.
Yeah.
So, I don't blame you for that. But anyway, we did have one or two other little things you can do to try to improve your lifestyle. One is take a freaking lunch. I know you're going to think that you're like super ultra hard worker if you skip lunch and everybody sees I'm a team player. Just take your damn lunch.
No.
Get away from the desk, eat something, get some fresh air. If you're working from home, like I said, take a walk or do something to get away and get some food in your stomach. For that matter, have a normal eating schedule, period. Skipping breakfast is another thing. A lot of people do that, especially if you've got a long commute, right? You skip breakfast or you take a Pop-Tart with you.
I love breakfast.
Having
It's my
a
favorite
good
meal of the day.
having a good healthy breakfast is more important than a lot of people seem to think that it is. Some people say that breakfast should be your biggest meal and all the other meals of the day should be smaller, and Americans and most cultures have it kind of backwards where dinner is the big meal.
It's the best is breakfast for dinner.
Breakfast for dinner, there you go. We've done the waffles for dinner or eggs for dinner thing. It's pretty good. Omelets are awesome. Not the best for you, but awesome. I guess it depends how you make the omelet.
The eggs are not particularly high calorie, actually.
Yep. Let's see. What else did I have here? Oh, we were talking about convertible desks. How do you feel about treadmill desks? This was in one of the articles that I linked. There was
I think they sound good. I think they sound good in principle, but I'm a terrible multitasker. I would probably not do well on a treadmill desk.
That was the thing, and I think it was the Business Insider one. The office job is destroying your health one. They said that. I mean, think about it, right? You're trying to type. You're walking on a treadmill. One, it increases typos because think about it. You're moving, right? You're not stationary. But the other thing is, it increases your risk of falling and hurting yourself.
Yeah, and that article with the 24 ways your office work is killing you.
Yeah,
it's dank, man.
It really is. There's
dank.
There's some terrible stuff in there.
Although I was going down at like stuff about getting a cold or whatever, getting sick of the office or this, that, recycled air. I'm like, ooh, not a problem. Ooh, not a problem anymore. Not a problem anymore. Not a problem anymore.
You just check.
I used to have when I was in White House Station with Merck, I would, depending on the time of year, have these horrible cracks in my hand.
Yep.
It hasn't happened since I stopped going into an office.
Yeah, I still get.
It had to be either something with the HVAC or some other thing going on.
I still get dry skin, but you're right. The cracking that doesn't happen so much anymore. I honestly think most offices that I've ever been in use antibacterial soap at their washing stations in the bathrooms, right? For obvious reasons. I think that's rougher on your skin is what it comes down to. Where at home you get a choice. You might have a moisturizing soap. You might have something that's less harsh on you. But the HVAC is another valid thing, right? That was touched on one of the articles
Don't drop
too.
the
That
soap.
the recirculated air isn't so great for you either, because
Yeah.
most office buildings don't open windows because they have the AC on, right? And what you end up with is dry, stale air. If the filtration system on the AC, if there is one at all, may
That
not
all
be
that all
getting all
that
the
you get
particulates out.
all the sick people
Yep.
air. You
Yep.
got the asshole who decided to microwave fish.
Oh god, we've got burnt popcorn fish smell in the air.
Ah,
Oh god.
ah!
So
Don't
anyway,
miss that.
those are our points. Like I said,
Shout out if anybody else has ever.
I've got,
Spoiler alert! It's never appropriate to microwave fish.
it's never okay
Don't
to
stop
microwave
doing
fish.
it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. So anyway, I linked a bunch of articles that were about various things. There's even one that was a study done by, I don't know, this one that's like ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. You have to have a degree in statistics to understand it, but it's there. Maybe you guys are better at statistics than I am. But it looked interesting. That's in there. There's a couple blogs, a couple news articles. There's the one about how Office is killing you. Lots of good stuff. And I linked some of the products that I've purchased to make my home office better, if anybody's interested in those sorts of things. I linked my stand-up desk, which I do love, but apparently the price is like double what I paid for it. It was like $200 when I bought it. Now it's $5.
Yeah, supply chain problems.
freaking
Yada
crazy.
yada yada.
So find a less expensive one. A good chair is another really important thing. Like I said, you should have a mix of sitting and standing. When you're sitting, it should be in a good supportive chair. I have the Herman Miller Aeron chair. I got it from a used office supply place for like less than half the retail price, which is still a lot of money.
I have a decent chair from Staples. It's no Herman Miller, but it's
Yeah,
nice.
no, you know what? A decent chair from Staples is fine too. Just as long as it supports your lumbar and as long as it's supportive for all of the things that it needs to be supportive of.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the $50 Walmart chair, which is what I had when I started working remotely, it was really not doing my back any favors, and I
No.
still have back trouble, I think, because of sitting in that thing so much.
Nah, this chair is good.
So anyway, you have any other thoughts on this before we close it up? I mean, we went all over the place, I think, but I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't talk about eye strain. That's a valid thing, staring at a screen all day.
It can be, which is why it's nice to just periodically look at something else, especially in the distance. Give your eyes a rest.
Yep. That is valid. Looking at something that's farther away will give your eyes a different sort of focal point. And
you're good. Having the type of work that doesn't necessarily need an assembly line or factory or continuous transaction approach.
Mhm.
Like if I'm working in a restaurant, if I'm a cashier, if I'm working in an assembly line, if I'm in a call center, taking call after call, right? Then it's a little more challenging in those types of jobs to mix things up. Most of us are IT professionals, which means that even for tedious shit like being stuck on calls, we have the ability to like get up from our desk and walk around our house on that call, or like we're not necessarily measured by the keystrokes we're typing, or you know, whether or not we're constantly online and in Slack or whatever instant messaging tool. And if that is your job, then I think it's a worker's market still for IT people. Go somewhere else.
yeah, right.
But
Right.
like seriously, yeah, there's a better position for you. I promise. But we should have the freedom of as IT people to be able to mix things up.
Yeah.
And as humans, that's important. It really is that simple, right? Mix things up.
Sorry, I was just reading a
And
comment that looks very valid from J Scar in chat. He says he was once told by an eye doctor the 20/20/20 rule. Every 20 minutes, look away for 20 seconds at something 20 feet away.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've covered it well, folks. If you guys think you have some more things to throw into that pot, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. Maybe we can do a follow-up show. But I mean, we touched on a bunch of stuff today. We're not doctors, obviously, but these are just sort of our own experiences. And yeah, Right, we don't play them on TV either, or even on podcasts. So, if you do have some legitimate health issue, please go see a doctor about it. Don't think that this is the be all end all of healthcare advice. It's really just our experiences from. Those are yours.
Those are mine. I think my wife just got home. Sharon was running out to the grocery store because we needed some stuff for Easter.
I thought it was our
So.
dogs, but no, it's yours this time. The mic
No,
is
it's
that
my
good. It
little
sounded
chips.
like it was ours. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
so right, we're gonna go to a break, folks. As usual, we're gonna split the show into 2 pieces. So if you want to hear the rest of the show, look for the B episode of episode 119, and we'll pick up from there. If you don't pick up from there, fine, whatever. I hope you enjoyed this part of the show.
Not to be confused with the B movie, the one Jerry Seinfeld was in.
Oh no, the B part of the show is definitely a B movie as compared to the A part of the show, which is an A movie.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, remember to follow us on all the social places, the Twitters and the Facebooks. Look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast. Subscribe on YouTube and Twitch if you want to, or I guess it's follow on Twitch, isn't it? Subscribing means money.
I don't friggin' know.
You can do that if you want to, but you can also support the show on Patreon, which helped fund Mark's mic.
Don't bother subscribing on Twitch. If you want to support the show, the way to do it is
Patreon's the way to do it, because you get to pick your price and
or buy some merch.
Buy some merch. Buy some merch.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go to a little break, folks, that are on the live stream. We will see you in, 5 to 10. And
a few minutes.
Minutes, not years. It's not a sentence. Let me find the button here. Here's the button. Where's the...
Yeah.
You drinking water now, Uncle Mark?
I'm drinking more water.
No bourbon or whiskey tonight?
I had a beer. I generally try to keep it to 1 drink a night unless I'm in a
particularly
really
animated
social
mood?
situation. Animated, well, yeah, when I was in Raleigh a few weeks ago, which I'll talk about, we had a team dinner where I had many an old fashioned. Oh my God, they were so good.
It's one of my favorite drinks outside of beer, right? Like I love a good variety of beer, but if I want liquor, it's probably an old fashioned.
Yeah, it was they were letting us use the good bourbon. I think is Waterford a valid bourbon? It was
no
W.
idea.
Yeah, well, I had like 4 or 5, I think.
I don't know
really
them that
remember.
well. I know a couple that I've had that I like. They're
Yeah,
nothing
they were
fancy.
These were fancy.
That or like the Big Lebowski. I don't. I should get one. There's a carpet that ties the whole room together, but that's really not the same. They peed on my rug,
Also,
man. It tied the whole room together.
Yeah, we're now in the hour of the Shih Tzu, so you might hear the one dog bark periodically.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Because she's a pain in the ass.
My dogs were howling. The kids could come in at any second.
Oh!
During the break, right? They were showering on the other side of this wall because that's where our master bathroom is, and I could hear them pounding on the wall, like there were demons. Ah! It was crazy. I had to go over and girls, comment.
We don't even pretend. Like, there's just noise. There's gonna be noise and chaos, and that's just part of the appeal.
Yep. All right, so now's the part of the show where we have announcements and whatnot. First thing we like to do is thank all of our patrons. So thank you, patrons, for getting Uncle Mark a mic.
It's very nice.
It's a very nice.
It's on this little orange. It's cool.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I didn't know if you'd want the arm because some desk setups don't go well with the arm. But I figured whatever for the price. I'll send you the arm.
The stand would have been awkward. The arm is absolutely pretty.
I want to say Jason uses his on the stand, so it sits right in front of him. But he must have his desk set up in a way that, for me, that'd be right where the keyboard is, right? So that wouldn't work for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so right, I want to thank our patrons. Good old Zed Thor, name pending 197, Jeremy, Aranami, Andrew, Tatro, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn, Trooper-ish, Linux, Sys 666, Mark with a K, The Mentor, Mark with a C, Julius, Andy, J, Charles, and the good old 22532. Thanks, all of you, for being patrons. The show pays for itself with the patronage, and we can save up money to do things like buy mics and stuff.
I
looks
think it's
kind
a
of
heart.
that's a heart.
I mean, it's either a heart or a butthole.
It's more like an
better be a heart.
oval when you put your hands like that. But yeah, it's kind of a heart.
Meant to be a heart.
Spiritually, it's a heart.
Yeah.
So, right, folks. If you want to become a patron, just go to patreon.com/Iron Sysadmin Podcast, I think is the URL. If not, it's in the show notes. You can click on it. You can also support the show by buying merch. If you go to Teespring. So the links that I put they're not specifically tied to the show, but I used an affiliate account I've already got. I'll put that money into the show too if anybody buys stuff that way. So just so you know, there it is. You don't get charged any extra for that. Well,
Boom.
you guys know how Amazon affiliates work, I'm sure.
Boom. There it is. Whoop. There it is. I don't know. Amazon affiliates work.
Well, no, the idea is that I refer you to Amazon,
explain it again,
right?
Yeah,
and then you don't pay any extra, but I get a commission out of it. So
okay. Oh, that's
how
what that
works.
is.
Yeah, that's how that works. Right. Okay. The only other announcement we have is I had this crazy idea.
Crazy.
So there was I've mentioned this a number of times on the show for the past like 2 months or so. I've been really into Valheim for whatever reason. I just like latched into that game. And
Vikings are cool, man.
Well, yeah, it is cool, but it's almost like an unhealthy obsession. There was a point where every minute I was not working, I was playing Valheim, and I had to start stepping back from that because my family was like, "Who are you again?" But anyway, there is a subreddit for Valheim, like just about anything else you can ever think of. And in that subreddit, someone posted in Valheim, every time you start a new game, it makes a random world, right? And
that it's procedurally generated, based on a seed.
It's based on a seed, and you can
Which, by the way, is how No Man's Sky works. It uses math.
Cool. But you can get that seed out of your world, right? So one thing that people who are like...
It's part of your world.
One thing
and I think the mic's going to really... The mic, I think, is really going to, like, up my singing game.
It could.
Because it feels like it should.
Now you can,
I could do that whole whole Barbra Streisand, like, hands on either side of the mic and just be, like, into it. Part of your world. Anyway. So you like Vikings.
Yeah, people in that subreddit will take the seed from worlds they think were unique and they'll share them and say, look at this cool world. And people who are like speed running Valheim will find the one that has all the bosses closest to each other and all the resources that you're going to need to get through the game as quickly as possible, and they share it. Yeah. This one was not that. This one was...
This was kind of the opposite.
This is kind of the opposite, right? When you start Valheim, you get dropped into what we call the altar, but what everyone else just calls the spawn. That's where you start the game. There's an altar there where wherever you defeat a boss, you bring its head back, right?
I love the positive feedback from Gator Bite. Thank you, Gator.
Yeah, so you have to keep returning to this place, right? And of course, it's right where you start. Well, this seed, for whatever reason, starts you on this tiny, tiny little island. And the tiny island is where the altar is, right? And in Valheim, everything you do that is slightly exerting requires stamina. And the way you boost your stamina is not by leveling, but by eating certain kinds of food, right? So imagine you're on this tiny island. Swimming is one of those things that eats stamina. So swimming just across a little river can actually be a challenge in Valheim when you're early enough on because you don't have any food yet, right? This seed starts you on an island. You're basically trapped there until you figure out how to get the resources to get off of that island.
Now, the thing is, it doesn't look like a river. It looks like you're on an island in the middle of a lake.
Yeah, right. It's more like a wide river if you think about it in game terms. But yes, you're in a lake, right? But it's the width of where the island is to where the mainland is about...
It didn't look swimmable to me in the screenshot.
It's not swimmable. And a little bit of space on either side. Like if you put a workbench at one end of this thing, that whole end of the island is going to have no spawns on it. That's how small it is. Right?
Okay.
So,
and are there actually any resources on the tiny altar island?
Well, I don't want to ruin it because I've already tainted it myself by going to look at it, and I don't want to talk too much about it. But what we're going to do is Mark and I, who, as we've mentioned, play Valheim together on Tuesday nights, we're gonna have a live stream where we're going to start brand new characters and drop into this world with this crazy seed where we're trapped on this little island, and we're
'Cause we're
going
dumbasses.
we're going to play the game until we figure out how to get off the island without dying. And you know, if that happens in the first 20 minutes, maybe we'll keep playing Valheim just for fun. I don't know, but I think it's going to be a little bit harder of a challenge than just like a 15-minute, you know, whatever. There are hacky ways to do this. I'm going to try to make sure we don't do those things because there's ways to
Okay.
reset your stamina by like doing things. We're not going to do that. We're going to play the game as intended and try to get off this island. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The reason this is an announcement is because it's going to happen next Wednesday, 5/20. Sorry, 4/20. I put 5. It's 4. So all you pot smokers,
420.
all you pot
It's
smokers,
actually the
you're
perfect
not-
challenge to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a perfect challenge to smoke a bowl before doing.
Yeah,
It's a shame I
right.
don't smoke.
So yeah, it should be fun. We talked about it a bit before we went live. I'll probably stream it on the Iron Sysadmin channels, just because I'm
For
telling you guys,
notifications.
and why not, right? That way you guys can be notified when it happens. So if you're interested in watching two Vikings, maybe with alcohol, trying to get off of a little island. This should be fun. We're gonna shoot for like 7:30. I don't know if we'll go live at 7:30, but that's when we're gonna get together and get things set up. So I'll try to have it all prepared before then, and it should be a good time.
Yeah. Alrighty.
All right, I think that's all the announcements. That was a ton of preamble to get to an announcement. Should be a fun time. Maybe I'll pick up some more whiskey before that, or maybe I'll learn how to make a White Russian. Isn't it just like cream and Kahlua or something? I don't know what's in a White Russian.
I think I would just look it up, right? That's what the internet's for.
That's what the internet's for. Maybe I'll wear an old bathrobe, put on some kind of a
Yeah.
matted old wig.
Something like, yeah. You will. Yeah. Gangriff abides.
Man,
Anyway.
they peed on my rug. Such a great movie.
I'm more of a Fargo guy, but yeah, The Big Lebowski's pretty good.
the scene where he's in the penthouse, and the dude, I forget what his name was, the rich guy. He walks over to the pad and he writes something down real secretively, and he takes the one off the top of the stack and goes away, right? And Lebowski, what the impression was, and the dude just drew a penis. For some reason, that sticks out in my head. Like, and he just looks at it like, what?
Why did he do this?
Anyway, funny movie. All right, so I think we've successfully moved out of announcements and into chat.
I think we have. We are definitely solidly in chat now.
I have a complaint in chat, and this is, I should have known better. So I have been under the opinion for a very long time that as long as Microsoft Windows has implemented the Hibernate function, it has been a shit show.
Oh God, are you kidding me?
It just doesn't work. Like back in the
No, it never has
like
worked.
way back in like the Windows 95 days, it was crap then, right? Well, now that I have this brandy new machine that I've only got a couple games on, nothing crazy going on it, right? Windows 11, I thought they must have fixed Hibernate by now. I'm gonna, because I have a desktop now, I'm gonna use it to conserve power during the day when I'm not using it, right? Because this is a pretty beefy machine.
Foolish mortal.
And I was doing that. It was working pretty well for a while. And then all of a sudden it starts like coming out of Hibernate on its own. For no apparent reason. It's just like, hi, I'm awake now. Let's do something. I'm like, no, shut up. Go to sleep. Now, when I bring it out of Hibernate, the displays don't come back. And I have to hard power it off to get the damn displays back. I'm like, Microsoft, you got like one freaking job. Hibernate has one job, to suspend the system and bring it back cleanly. No, I'm going to have to shut the thing down now, I think, during the day in order to Mac does this fine. Linux does this fine. Microsoft can't get it right.
I'm gonna disagree that Linux always does it fine, but I think that's more of a depends on the hardware situation.
Yeah, I guess it could. It could.
What I will say is that prior to being a Linux nerd, I did desk side support at Merck.
Yeah.
Where they had a and then thankfully after that Windows XP. And um, yeah, the Hibernate, no, it was always a train wreck.
It's a train. It still is.
It's a train wreck.
It's probably the same
It's not
code.
worth using.
It's probably the same code from Windows 95, and they just carry it forward.
Yeah, Suspend could do okay, although it's Suspend still sometimes got janky.
Yeah.
But Hibernate, where it has to write out the page file and then recover. I had so many of my users just did not have a good experience with it. We just got to the point where like, yeah, you can't use Hibernate. It just it's broke AF.
This doesn't differentiate between Hibernate and Suspend. I don't know which one it's executing, but I clicked the sleep button. Like start, power, sleep. Right? And I don't know which of those two actions it's taking, but whatever it is, it's garbage.
Well, Suspend was always just about stuff in RAM, right? And it could quickly recover.
Yeah.
Hibernate, it would write the state to the drive and then kind of almost power down.
Yeah.
And the good part of Hibernate was you'd power it back up and it would boot quicker because it didn't have to do a full fresh boot.
Yeah.
It was never a good experience.
Yeah, so the goal here is to keep the state, right? So like the browser I had open, the chat sessions I had open, I wanted to just go to sleep, and then when I come back to it, bring it back up, and all my stuff is back. And that was working, and now it suddenly is more of a hassle than it's worth. And I'm either going to leave it on all the time from now on, or I'm just going to shut it down in the morning, or shut it down, before I start work, which is a pain in the ass because then I'm going to shut it down overnight too. So if I want to use my machine for an hour in the morning before I start work, it's going to be booted up. Use it for that hour, turn it back off.
My machines stay on all the time. I don't shut them down.
Yeah, I was trying to do the good thing, trying to like soften the blow on the power bill, right? Because it's a desktop. Where when I had a laptop, I would just when I had a laptop, I would close the lid and it would go to sleep, and it was fine. But yeah, not so much with this one. So this has been Nate yelling at his computer. Hope you guys have enjoyed.
Not even really yelling at your computer, just griping about your computer.
Complaining about Microsoft, which is a thing I've been doing for 20 years, so I guess it's really not.
Can you show us on the page file where Microsoft hurt you? Okay.
Let's see, what else I got going on? They call DOKS, DigitalOcean Kubernetes Service, maybe? I don't know. I know almost nothing about Kubernetes, so I thought it'd be a good place to learn without having to learn much about how to build Kubernetes, just to learn how to use Kubernetes. And it's so far not going well.
Oh no! I'm
just going. Well, I have the clusters up obviously because that was all automated, but I'm going through just some of their tutorial stuff.
Is it obvious?
And well, okay, maybe you're right, but it is up at 3.
Tutorials.
Yeah. I'm on step number 3, and it's already not working the way it's supposed to. So...
That's okay. My brain. Ask my wife this. My brain has decided recently that omelets are actually omulets, and I don't have any friggin' clue where that came from.
Too many amulets.
I'm either getting old or it's the long COVID from when I got OG COVID back in 2020.
There you go. That's the
omulets.
Omulets. That's the mental
or
damage
played
that
way,
it causes.
Played way too much NetHack.
That could be.
To retrieve the amulet.
And the other thing is sorry, go ahead.
So this Kubernetes thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
So they is it kind of like a one button press and they set the cluster up for you?
Yeah, so
and then
what I was going to do is I was going to go through the procedure of trying to build OpenShift, OKD, the upstream of OpenShift on DigitalOcean. Because I don't have the hardware to do it at home. I just don't have anything with enough resources. And yes, there's options now that do like the tiny deployment, microshift or whatever. But I wanted the full OpenShift experience if I was going to do it. And there doesn't appear to be an easy / supportable way to do that on DigitalOcean. So I would have to go to Amazon or Azure or something, which are options, right? But I'm already on DigitalOcean, so I wanted to stick with DigitalOcean. And then I remembered that they have this Kubernetes service. I thought, well, So I talked to one of our shift TAMs at work, and I'm like, look, if I learn Kubernetes, is this generally going to be pretty transferable? They're like, yeah, under the covers, it's all Kubernetes, and it's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, and then Red Hat adds stuff on top of that.
Right,
But
right.
the Kubernetes is the fundamental stuff.
Yep. So I figured, all right, and the goal here is I already have all of my services, like my website, ironsysadmin.com. They're all running in containers that are pods that are defined in the same way you would define them in Kubernetes. So I figured my services are already halfway there. If I learn Kubernetes, I can then put them into Kubernetes, and then I'll have a slightly better deployment.
Relatively easy to migrate them into the Kubernetes environment.
But I need to learn
sense, dude. Everything you're saying makes sense.
So you take the traffic from the world and pass it on to the containers that I built. The containers are these dirt simple things that just echo back. They're called Echo. They're like a special container that does nothing but run a website that says what you told it to say.
Right, so that you can test to make sure the friggin' ingress controller is working.
The ingress controller, I set it up. It says it's pointing to the containers. I go to it. It comes up with an Nginx error that says not found. Nginx is the ingress controller. So Nginx, the ingress controller, appears to be serving something that says I don't know where that is, instead of passing it on. So
is the ingress controller part of the managed services that are given to you? You have to set that up separately. Like, how does that work?
It's part of the tutorial, how you define the stuff, right? So I define the containers in a pod, and then I define the ingress controller, set up these DNS entries, and then it should work. And then, once this works, move on to the next step. It doesn't work. I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong here? I'm on step freaking 3. Like, how did I mess this up already?
So I think with OpenShift and Kubernetes, you need to be able to do, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like wildcard DNS.
I'm not even there yet. These are like static DNS entries that point to the ingress controller's IP address, and it's supposed to work this way.
Can you ping the IP address?
Yeah, it responds. It responds with a not found error when I go to it. So it is responding. It's just not getting to the back end that it's supposed to for some reason. I don't know. I have to set up some time with him to figure out what the hell I did.
Now, because this is DigitalOcean, do they have support or no?
Oh, yeah, I could probably go that route. I feel like I'm surrounded by enough Shift and Kubernetes experts that I probably don't need it. But if it comes down to that, I can certainly do that.
So I'm gonna challenge you a little bit, because like it's step friggin' 3 in their tutorial, and if it's not working, what's going on?
Yeah, well, if I did something wrong is what I want to know first, which is why I figured I would talk to someone who knows Kubernetes.
All right, well, there you go.
So, but you're right. You're right. I could contact their support and go, "Hey, what did I do wrong here?"
So see if they can help me. Really, what it comes down to is computers are hard.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about.
Like, I would run into them on step number 3. That's all.
I mean, all you need to do is write an article, and a monkey could do it, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that?
That's
Isn't
exactly.
that what they've been trying to do that for the past 30 years in IT?
That's how computers work.
Just have enough knowledge articles, and we can just outsource it to someone who can read the article.
Yeah, this is so simple.
That'll
It
work.
should all just work.
That'll go well.
So yeah, the only other thing I have going on is that I've gone a little bit further down the Apple lock-in path, and that is that I got an Apple Watch.
Which means that it's the edge device for your iPhone.
Yeah, I have an edge device for my iPhone now.
I love the Apple Watch.
Oh yeah, it's great. Normally, I don't like to buy hardware that is dependent on other hardware, but in this case, I mean,
it's an edge device.
Yeah, it really is. It's just meant to work with the iPhone, and it works so well with the iPhone.
It does a fantastic job.
I had a Fitbit for a long time, which was not terrible, but it had these weird little fiddly problems. Like it sometimes
I think that's because the Apple Watch is flawless.
Like, for the most part, it did its job, but I kept running into these problems where it would, like, it's supposed to sync automatically, right? I'm not supposed to even have to think about it. It's supposed to sync every so often. It tracks my steps. It gives me notifications, whatever, right? The notifications weren't always flawless. The sync would sometimes just not work for weeks on end, and I wouldn't even know it. I'd go in to check something and realize I don't have data for the last 2 months, and I'd have to sync it, and then it would take forever, right? So I finally
had similar challenges with the Fitbit.
I finally just got fed up with it, and I had some, well, we've talked about this before. I had some reward points from work. I had just enough to buy an Apple Watch SE, and that's when I bought the more expensive one, but this is great. It works great.
You don't need the one that's got cell service. The only time you need that the only real use case for the one that's got the cellular service built in
Yeah,
is if you don't
you
carry
don't have
your
your
phone
phone,
with
right?
you.
Yeah, yeah. No, that wasn't the difference. This is the SE that I bought,
Okay, so it's
and
probably
there's
probably a smaller display,
the
maybe not as
six.
bright.
The 6 I think is what you have, and the 7 is the
Yeah,
latest, right? So I don't
I
really
think this is
know.
6.
I don't really know the difference between the 7 and the SE,
This was the $500 one.
other than $250 or $300, which is
Yeah,
exactly why I bought the SE. So it's been working
but
great,
I
and
got this essentially half off because I used Red Hat rewards.
yeah, which is what I probably could have done because that's about how many rewards I had. But instead, I just,
I just decided my daughter had one and I decided to just go big or go home.
yeah, that was the other thing. I didn't have hands-on experience with any Apple Watches. I had used You Love Yours, Jason loves his, so that was a pretty good review. But I didn't want to spend that kind of money on something I wasn't sure about. And after I
Well,
bought this, uh,
this does all the health shit
oh,
too.
so
Like, does yours measure your blood ox and all that other stuff?
it doesn't do. I don't think it does blood oxygen. It does heart rate. It does, like the usual. It does all the stuff the Fitbit did, which is really what I was looking to replace. But it does step and exercise tracking.
Blood ox.
But is that worth $250? I don't know. Is there...
I don't know.
The only other thing, and maybe this is another difference, the battery life
Maybe it
on
is.
this.
Maybe it isn't.
The battery on life on this isn't awesome, but it's about on par with where the Fitbit was.
This'll do a day and a half if it's doing all the stuff I tell it to do.
Okay, that's about the same then.
Yeah. The only time the battery life is ever an issue with this thing is when I do multi-day camping trips. Yeah. Blood ox 97% right now.
Yeah. So this'll get me a day and a half to 2 days.
My charge is
Fitbit would
pretty quick.
charge in like half an hour, which is what
So
I was hoping
what
for.
I have this little 3D Macintosh. I
Yeah.
print it. That's
Yep.
got you can see the charger thing in it. So I just drop it in the morning as part of my
Oh,
routine.
okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's a Mac SE, the old classic all-in-one Mac.
Yeah,
So the watch display is in the front of it.
I just put it. I have the charger on my nightstand, and it's the same thing I did with the Fitbit. When I get up in the morning, I put it on charge.
Red band.
Yep, and then
Red
by the
band.
time I've showered and stuff, it's charged, and I put it back on. So I figured I don't
I
wanna
like
wear
to-
this
I
in the
like to
shower
wear-
anyway.
I like to wear it to bed. So
Yeah, I do that.
Oh, you wear it overnight? Okay.
Yeah, first when I get up in the morning, I put it on charge, and then by the time
That's
I've showered
essentially
and
what
stuff, I
I'm
put it back
doing.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
that's my newest thing. It's neat. I
Oh,
like it.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the fact that it has the knob. I thought the knob would be silly, but it actually
The
works.
knob is spectacular.
It works really well.
I
It's,
am-
it's a nice UI. I like it.
I was ready to be super skeptical, and within 24 hours, I'm like, I love this. I never not want to have it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it enough that I went and bought my wife one because she also had a Fitbit. I went and bought her one like a week after I bought
And just
mine.
just glance at your wrist, like when you get a text or something or,
Yeah.
or notification, like, oh, okay, that's gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Fitbit in theory did that. The problem
Yeah,
is
so did mine, but it was
Yeah.
not consistent.
the problem is I would do this and the screen wouldn't come on, and then I have to hit the button or room. Right? It's like it's
Yeah.
not even
No,
pointed
the
at my
watch-
face. Why did you wake
The
up?
watch is smart about that. In fact, you got to spin the little wheel if you want to see what time it is in the middle of the night
Yeah,
to bring it back up.
So-
I really like it.
yeah, I like mine too.
Well, congratulations.
Anyway, what do you got going on?
What do I got going on? So, I know that I've talked about Elden Ring at least once. According to people who've played it more than me, get there fairly quickly, but there's so much side content and there's no one path just because of the way the game works that's just a guess, right? But I do have a channel where you can watch me roll around and throw magic rocks at bosses.
Yeah,
Because every time I kill an enemy that's of any significance, either a boss or a mini boss, I just hit the button on the PS5 controller and I can save recent gameplay, and I can do it like last 30 seconds, last minute, last 3 minutes, last 5 minutes, up to the whole friggin' session, and then there's on-screen tools to just crop.
That's cool.
So, and then I after I crop it and save it, I just hit share to YouTube. It goes right up on my YouTube channel. And then after the session, I just go and edit them. Like I give them proper titles and maybe put a little
Yeah.
color in there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. I can go back and look at the progression of how far I've come in the game. And it's just it's I've played a Souls game before. This is for those of you who are gamers and might be familiar. This is the same company that brought you the original Demon Souls and then the Dark Souls series, then Bloodborne, then Sakura, I think is the game. I think that's FromSoft, Sakura. I don't know. But the point is they're kind of known for being difficult and you die a lot.
Yeah.
Now, but they're not like twitchy in the sense that if you don't have like 13-year-old reflexes, you're never going to win. Like combat is actually fairly medium paced, I would say. So part of the game is observing enemies, observing their move sets. As you move to new areas and run into different enemies, they're not all going to have the same move sets or skills or anything like that.
Yeah.
And learning how to dodge, learning how to block, knowing how to counter. And in my case, I play mostly sorcery, so it's about learning how to maintain my distance and exploit positioning and throw magic rocks. But I now have this really cool new spell called like I stand there and it's this blue beam that just like does mega damage.
That's awesome.
And normally it can drain your mana very quickly. But there's also this thing you have called the Wondrous Physique. It's essentially a one-shot potion that resets every time you rest at a campfire, a site of grace. And you take these tiers and you mix two tiers together. And so the potion always has two characteristics. I used to rock what's the potion in Diablo, the purple ones? They heal both your health and your mana.
Yeah.
Rejuvenation potions.
Yeah.
I effectively made a rejuvenation potion, which I used for quite a while. But now I'm rocking one. The one jewel puts up a damage shield, which will completely absorb the damage from one hit. Nice. I think you can see where this is going.
Yeah.
So find the enemy, pop the potion, and wave motion gun the thing and melt it. So this right here, I'm gonna to share a video in our chat. This is me basically doing the wave motion cannon on a dragon. So I'm throwing that in the Twitch chat for people who want to take a look.
Cool, and that's
in
the show notes as well, folks. If you want to check it out later.
It's one of the most recent videos on the playlist, but that's the specific one video. And so I've been going back. Here's the thing about my videos. What you don't see for the most part is all the ones where I die horribly. I post videos after I finally beat a boss. Some of them are after many attempts. There's one or two where I put some hilarity in there and you get to see me croak to something, but for the most part, do not be fooled. I am not going in there and one-shotting all these difficult things. It's often taking multiple attempts, trying different tactics, and then I win. But it's oddly I never thought I'd be into like the Souls games, like they always terrified me a little bit. But because Elden Ring has this whole open world aspect to it, where the previous Souls games were often very linear. Like if you got stuck at a boss, you weren't getting past it until you ground a little bit, maybe got a little leveled up. But with Elden Ring, because it's open world, if you get stuck on a boss, well, you can probably go somewhere else. There's probably something else to discover or a different boss to fight. And there's over 80 bosses in the game. You have to kill less than a dozen to actually complete the story. Those are like what people would consider mandatory bosses. And some of them aren't even mandatory depending upon the progression you take. It's pretty interesting. I'm also trying to read as little, like I'm trying to be as not spoiled as possible. because people already have crazy guides on what to do and everything. So I'm trying to not read that stuff and discover as much as I can, and it's really been a great experience that way.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, what I haven't had a chance to do yet is try the new No Man's Sky patch, which lets you be a space pirate now.
Yes,
have you jumped into that yet?
I'm very looking forward to it. I have not yet though. So I've told you this before that to me No Man's Sky brings back memories of my old Trade Wars 2002 days. And
Oh, absolutely.
I always played that as a pirate. And you could not do that in No Man's Sky, or at least not.
It wasn't very fulfilling.
It's really not fleshed out, right? Like you could go around killing the good guys, but you didn't really become a pirate per se. This new update brings in like true piracy aspects. You can be an outlaw, you can smuggle things, you can like be Han Solo. It sounds pretty cool, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm really happy because the last update was cool with the, they brought in an update that brought in more, they fleshed out the Sentinels more and stuff, and that was cool and all, but to be honest, it wasn't what I was looking for in No Man's Sky. I don't want the Sentinels to be more annoying than they were already.
And they're pretty friggin' annoying.
They're annoying. And now they're annoying and powerful, which sucks, right? I think it sucks. But they did flesh out the mech suit piece, which I thought was cool. That they expanded the ability to customize your Minotaur. But this sounds awesome, and they have an expedition coming that's around the same theme, around the pirates thing, which I will definitely play. The last expedition I thought was really disappointing too. I started playing it. It's all about taming animals and becoming friends with your animals, and I played a couple hours of it, and I'm like, I just don't have the interest in coming back to this one.
I got distracted by, it was either Horizon or Elden Ring, and just totally blew off that expedition.
Yeah, I
forget where I was.
It closed a week or two ago, and to be honest, I felt no motivation to go back and work on it.
But I will do the new expedition.
Yeah, I will probably do it too. Yeah.
I was gonna try some this morning before work, and for whatever, I guess there was a patch that the PS5 hadn't downloaded.
Yeah.
Because it probably just checks it periodically, and it hadn't done a check.
Yeah, I patched mine on PC this morning. I really want to do it in VR, which means I need to devote some more time to it than I would in flat mode. Just because when I get into VR, I want it to be for more than a 15-minute gaming session. I want to devote a couple hours to it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely gonna try. I'm definitely gonna hop into VR with it too.
Yeah.
But I was gonna give it a run on the PS5, and it did not.
Yeah.
Work out. So I played a little Elden Ring instead.
Tomorrow's a holiday. Maybe I'll play some No Man's Sky.
Maybe I gotta pick Josh up from school. He's coming home for Easter weekend. So Sharon and I are driving out in the morning.
Is that more important than No Man's Sky? Probably.
It sadly is. And then he wants to see the new Sonic movie. So he and I'll probably go see that maybe in the afternoon.
My kids want to see that too.
Josh and I saw the first one, and it was actually moderately amusing. We're gonna give it a go.
Pretty good.
But so that's. But I will get No Man's Sky in this weekend. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
Or I'll just play more Elden Ring. I will be playing something. You know that. And and then other than that, the manager role, I think it's going really well.
I saw you got to put your first announcement for somebody's 10-year anniversary.
10-year, double puck.
I thought you did a good job of crafting that. Good job there.
Oh, thank you. It was fun. I had some fun with it. But I've got a good crew. Working on hiring some more. It's a different perspective, and without doing too much inside baseball in this podcast, I have a little bit more of an appreciation for some of the recent changes that we've done in the organization. I'm happy to. We should probably chat about that, not in this forum.
I don't want to bore folks on the podcast. I'm sure there's reasons for all of it. It just looks weird from my perspective, but sure.
Honestly, I kind of felt the same, and not that I was in Raleigh and then they implanted a chip in me. That did not happen. But there's a lot.
I get it.
There, yeah, now you get it.
Let me see the scar.
There was the J scar.
Lift up your hairline in the back. I want to see where the scar is.
Yeah. Now I don't know who Gator Bite is in real life.
That's another alter ego for. Well, I don't know. Does he want us to? Gator, go ahead and tell Mark who you are if you want him to know. If not, I'll tell him when we're not on the air.
All right. Is Gatorbite a Red Hatter?
It's
really
it's someone you know, but I know there was a point where he had a very strict division between different profiles, and I don't know if he's past that or not. So,
all right, I suspect I know who it.
You
might
probably
be,
know who it is. Anyway,
we'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk later.
All right, so yeah, you got to go back to Raleigh. How is it? Is it still standing? Does the building feel all different now?
It is still standing. There were I definitely got some wonderful business appropriate hugs with some old friends of mine. I got to eat at Oak City Meatballs, which was still chef kiss. Really,
Did you go to the
I
pit?
really like their meatballs. Did not go to the pit. I did take my team out for some delicious sushi.
Okay.
At Sono, that great sushi place. That's a place where Greg Scott, who's been on the show, where he had never been to a sushi place, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, oh this green stuff. This must be some sort of pistachio thing or whatever." And he shoves the whole ball of hot wasabi in his mouth. You know, don't let people from Minnesota at a sushi place without adult supervision.
There are too many people that have that exact same story. My mother-in-law did that, and it was even featured in a Cars movie.
Yeah. So I saw it happen in real time.
Yeah.
It was friggin' hilarious.
I bet.
But yeah, no, Raleigh was good.
Cool.
Most irritating part was having to wear a mask on the flight, and through the airports. And I believe in masking. I think it helps reduce stuff, but that part was if I had to pick the most annoying part, that would be it.
Yeah.
I flew Delta because fuck you, United, and everything went great. In fact, I even got a free upgrade at the gate.
Yay.
Like the person's thing went off. Like, oh, Mr. Richter, you've gotten an upgrade. You get to move up into the better seating. I'm like, yes, I will take that.
No, I'd rather not. I'm just gonna stay in my cramped seat. Thanks.
Yeah.
Is that even an option?
And my seat partner, she was delightful. It was like two extroverts next to each other. So we became, by the time we landed, we were like best friends almost. It's sort of like that meme, which is like when my wife and I travel, the husband and wife get separated. The wife's the introvert, and she's, at the point that she's telling the story, she's already apologized to the person next to her for is already in somebody's wedding.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
Sounds about right.
But it was a good trip. Very good trip.
It'll be nice to get back to the tower. I'm looking forward to doing that at some point.
You did get to go to the tower, right?
Like, New Hire is the last time I was there.
Right, but you've actually been there. Like, there's a whole bunch of Red Hatters
that have never seen it yet.
Who've never been there.
Yep. Yeah, I was. I'm not going to say I was one of the last, but because I'm sure there were lots of New Hire orientations that happened in the weeks and months since I was hired. But yeah, I was there in October 19, and I think, what was it, February or March of 2020 that travel was shut down and the tower was shut down. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just want to know who it is so Gator can ping me on GChat. Because my phone's right here. And I won't reveal your secret identity.
Shh, it's a secret. Anyway.
It's a secret. Super secret.
All right, so I think we're good to move on to into the news, right? We're like, 45 minutes in, just talking about chat?
Oh, God, yeah, because there's a few things we do want to talk about.
Yeah, this could be an interesting news section. All right, let me find the right transition button.
Push the button, Frank.
Someday, whoever owns the rights to that sound clip, to push the button, Frank, are going to find us, sue us.
Yeah, I think they got better things to do
You're
than
probably
to worry
right.
about us.
You're probably right. I think the creators of Mystery Science Theater 3000 would probably be cool about it, but there's probably some like production company or whatever that owns it that would probably not be cool about it. Because that's just the way this stuff usually works. All right, so in the news tonight, we've got a couple interesting ones. The first one comes from CBS News. Apparently, so you may know this already, Elon Musk bought apparently a bunch of shares in Twitter. I don't know if that was a recent thing or if his next announcement was the only recent thing, but apparently it means he has like a controlling stake in Twitter, right? And correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's the way I read this. I'm not a financial guy.
Well, he owned 10%. That's not a controlling stake. I mean, that's a fair amount, but
10%.
that means that 10%. There can still be not the other 90% can tell him to go
Right.
pound sand,
Right.
and like to have a controlling stake, you need 51%.
Okay, so apparently he's offered.
I've watched Silicon Valley.
He's offered to buy enough that he can then own Twitter. Right. Oh yeah, right here it says he owns a 9.2% stake, so he's not a controller. But yes, he wants to spend what is it, 43 billion? Is that the number here? Yeah.
It's a lot of money. It's more than I have lying around.
Elon Musk is offering to buy Twitter for $43 billion, saying the social media company needs to be transformed as a private company. So I'm not certain how I feel about that. I don't know enough about Elon Musk as to know what his motivations may be here. Like, if this was Mark Zuckerberg, I'd be like, oh, hell no. This is bad. This is a very bad thing. I don't know if Musk is that guy.
I don't know if I care. Well, okay. I don't know if I care enough about Twitter. Like, I know to some people it's very important.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, to me, it's kind of my preferred social media at this point. And even then, I don't use it a ton. So if it vanished tomorrow, I don't think I'd be that upset. But I know a lot of people, this is it. This is like their online social life.
Well, then they need a life. I mean, Twitter's just not that important in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, you're right.
One comment we sort of talked about this prior. Think he's like some real world Tony Stark, the great example, whatever.
Well, you know,
he's actually a bit of a douche.
He makes electric cars and has rockets.
Yeah, but like to read about his background, like, you know, like his family money. What didn't his family make a lot of money with emerald mines, which is essentially modern slavery?
Awesome, that's fun.
And he didn't invent the Tesla. Like his engineers did. Like the dude's not an engineer. He's not like some super genius.
Right. He's
who worship. I'm going to say the name. Like people worship Trump as like this great businessman.
Yeah.
And he actually wasn't a great businessman.
Right.
And Musk is almost like he inherited a lot of his money. And yeah, maybe he's made some clever business moves and stuff, but like Tesla, the company, did not need him to invent the technology. He's not actually, and SpaceX, like he's not inventing anything there either. Like, I don't know. Rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're leaders. Yeah, like they struck where the iron was hot and they made savvy business decisions, maybe. But they're also fucking psychopaths.
Generally, yes.
Right? Because, like, you look at Amazon, does Bezos really need that much money?
Oh,
like,
Bezos, by all accounts, is a terrible human being.
like, the workforce in Amazon is, like, abused, I would say.
Have you followed any of their attempts to unionize?
Oh, yeah.
They're putting up, what was it they did? It was, and this wasn't the most recent vote, but back, it was like a year or so ago, they had a vote, right, where they had to mail in ballots or something. And what they did is they put a mailbox outside of the office, and then they had an Amazon manager sit at the mailbox, right? So people were afraid to put their ballots in, so nobody put in ballots.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the kind of shit that Amazon pulls at Bezos's direction.
That might be borderline illegal.
I know, right? It's probably right on the edge of legal, and that's why they did it that way. And because of that, even though all the workers are like, we have to unionize, it didn't pass because, you know, it was voted against because not enough people voted. It's like, that's the kind of crap they pull.
I think, haven't there been some locations that got a successful vote?
I don't know the specifics of everyone. I
saying,
basically know what I've heard through the news that I listen to, and that's what they had reported.
All right. Our live audience is saying that there could be an audio issue. I don't know if they've checked all the platforms.
No audio now too. I'll have to finish I don't know, man. It should be working. Once the Musk trash talk has started. Well, look, as long as you can hear me and I can hear you, we can finish the recording.
Well, yeah, because it is a podcast.
Yes, right.
All right.
So
yeah, I
we'll
don't know. I don't know what's going to play out with that.
Yeah, last time YouTube recovered faster.
Yeah. This next one. The next article, some metaverse company. Well, first of all, the fact that they're calling it metaverse company annoys me.
Yeah, right. A metaverse company. Yeah.
So they lose points already because
because it's so vague.
Buzzwords.
Yeah.
Somnium Space. What they're doing is they're trying to start a service where they capture so much personal data that they can create an avatar in virtual space that you can communicate with, and it's your dead loved one.
Yes.
Like,
this is creepy.
Essentially, it's a way to. YouTube doesn't have video. Oh, great.
Yeah, well, I guess the streams didn't recover, so that's just the way it is.
Yeah, finish listening to it as a podcast.
Yeah. And probably lots of other science fiction in similar. But yeah, this guy's like, oh yeah, his father got ill, or his grandfather got ill, right? No, his father got ill, and he had this thought because it's like, oh, my children will never know their grandfather. It's like, well, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
This is the finality of life, though, right? Like this is a very philosophical thing.
The circle of life.
I mean,
la, 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 la.
We're going through this now because my mother-in-law is sick, right? My wife would probably give anything to have her life extended, but I don't think she would want a digital AI-driven representation of her mother. It just isn't the same thing, right? Like I get that people don't want to let go, but this feels unhealthy. Like, not just weird and creepy, but unhealthy.
There was a Black Mirror episode, and Black Mirror, for those of you who don't know, you can watch it on Netflix. It is a dystopian science fiction show. It is meant to be a warning, not an instruction manual.
Right.
And there's an episode called Be Right Back, where a woman uses a service to communicate with her dead boyfriend. I mean, it is basically what this company is trying to do.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually link that in the show notes. I'm gonna
have to look up Black Mirror. It sounds like there's a lot of episodes of that.
Absolutely. It's actually some of them are really dank and are depressing, and some of them are fantastic, but they all, like, again, it really is an exploration of technology.
Yeah. Crazy.
and it's that episode of Black Mirror. So yeah, it starts as an AI, which you can then download into an Android body.
Wow. That is creepy. But that's where this could go, right? Same concept.
It could.
Once Android bodies are affordable, right? And I mean affordable in the thousands, not affordable in the billions that they probably are now, right? Because I'm sure you could get an Android body right now if you really, really, really had a bunch of money and really, really, really wanted to. Chatty big chat. So yeah, apparently, and I don't know. Did it say in here whether they could actually do this yet, or it's just a plan? It's not in existence yet, but it is a thing they want to do. Kind of crazy. So that article was from Vice. Sorry, Motherboard by the Vice. So apparently it's not just Vice, it's Motherboard. It's like a column, I guess, on Vice. All right, so our next article comes from Mac Rumors, and the title is Apple says plan for nearly 50% commission on metaverse purchases, lays bare Meta's hypocrisy. Now, there's a lot of like confusion in that title. I had to read it a few times myself to understand exactly what they were saying, because they're talking about Meta, the company, their metaverse, which is essentially, what is it, Facebook?
Facebook's
There
version of being IOI.
I can't remember the name of it. There was Facebook Worlds, was it? Facebook Worlds?
I don't know, because I'm not going to engage
Yes,
with it.
I agree. Anyway, so there's some backstory here. Apparently, Zuckerberg was mad at Apple because the Apple Store takes a pretty hefty cut of the cost. You know, when you buy something on the Apple Store, they take a pretty hefty commission out of it. Is going to do the same thing for purchases in their metaverse. Except
when
it's
you buy
almost
fake land or
it's almost
NFTs.
50% commission. Yeah, right. If you buy NFTs or land or apps or whatever, almost a 50% commission. Now they break down some of what that is. It's like 30% hardware fee on top of a 17.5% platform fee, which, yes, I get it, right?
Hardware fee.
I get their quote-unquote free metaverse costs them money to run. They need to pay for that somehow, but it is pretty pretty crazy, right? If you're going to make fun of other tech companies for taking a cut for very similar expenses, you should probably try to do better with your own expenses, not take a full 50%, almost 50%.
Well,
it's pretty crazy.
Again, Zuckerberg's an asshole.
Yep.
Who has more arrogant, by the way, that Facebook has already won and will be this metaverse if it should appear.
Yep.
So I hope he tries this and it just crashes and burns and loses him a ton of money and credibility.
Yep. So, I mean, I feel like I'm beating a drum here, but folks, this is not the future we need for what they're calling Web3 or metaverse. Don't
let Facebook win by default.
Do not blindly accept Facebook as your metaverse overlords. There are so many other options out there. There are other companies that are doing a similar model to Meta. There are companies that are doing more open models. There are companies that are doing free, I should say there are individuals even that are doing free open source models, which personally, for obvious reasons, I think is the method that should win. But unfortunately, history...
Not that you can't make money doing something like this, but...
History kind of shows us that except for a couple of standout exceptions, open source rarely wins, which is sad. Like, correct me if I'm wrong there, but if you look at the number of companies that are successful based on open source compared to the companies that are successful based on the firm grip they have on their customers because their software is closed, it's not very balanced. At least I don't think it's very balanced.
No.
And I think
it's not.
We're going to see a similar thing play out with these metaverse things, right? Unless people...
The irony is that Facebook uses a rel derivative.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, in fact,
so they're partially our fault.
They use something like CentOS Stream, don't they?
Yeah, they're actually. I guess you got to. Yeah.
I thought that was one of the cases where people were like, "Look, Facebook's using it. Don't complain."
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't want to go on too much about this, but
opinions on this podcast are my own and do not reflect the opinions of Red Hat or IBM.
Yeah. So at any rate, Facebook Meta is going to take a ton of money out of every sale on their metaverse. Surprise!
I want Zuckerberg to crash and burn on this one.
Yeah, I don't think he will. It's a sad outlook, but I don't think
people
he will.
Are too stupid. Yeah, you're right. The masses will flock to Facebook.
It may not turn out that they are the de facto standard, but they are certainly going to succeed.
Yeah.
I think.
Boo.
All right, so our last article of the day comes from science.org, or just science. I guess
Science!
It's science on the web. So I just thought this was neat. Thermal batteries could efficiently store wind and solar power in a renewable grid. So one of the problems with renewable energy, or energy in general, is that once it's generated, you need to either use it or store it, right? And storing it isn't always the most efficient, right? Because if you store, I don't know, a gallon of crude oil, um, barring certain circumstances, that gallon of crude oil will generally always be turnable into energy by simply opening the barrel and pouring it into a thing that turns it into energy by burning it or whatever. Power, once it's generated, storing it is generally, there's like loss to that, right? You put it in a battery.
sure.
A battery has a shelf life. Certain capacitors and whatnot, they just have a certain amount of drain. The amount of energy you put in isn't always the amount of energy you get out. There's loss there. If it sits for too long, there's loss there, right? So one of the problems with renewable energies is, yeah, we can like set up a windmill or a solar panel or whatever to make energy, but it has to kind of get used right away, right?
Right.
And if it's overcast, your solar panels aren't getting the sun that they need to generate a lot of power. That's why most solar systems, I don't mean solar systems, but solar electric systems,
I understood where you were coming
come
from.
with some kind of capacitance, like a battery or something that's in your house that stores power for overnight and for when it's cloudy out. And you're also still connected to the power grid, so that if all that fails, you still get power from the power grid, right? So you're not always, even if you're on solar, wind, or whatever power, you're not always 100% isolated from the power grid. You still need to depend on that because it's difficult to store enough electricity for long-term use, right? So all that to say, there has been a breakthrough in basically storing. So one of the ways that they're trying to solve this problem is by storing electricity as heat, which I don't fully understand exactly how they're doing that. I guess they're using the electricity to generate heat and then storing the heat, which also sounds
Yeah.
like it would be difficult to maintain, but they must have figured out how to do that. Or maybe
Yeah,
they're still
that's the
working on that piece. I don't know. But this article is about they have now figured out how to take the stored heat energy and turn it back into electricity. Not figured out, but they've developed a way to do so, right? Which I think is kind of cool, right? So we're not
Yeah,
there
so
yet.
this part of the article reads really casual, which to me sounds crazy. The idea is to feed surplus wind or solar electricity to a heating element, which boosts the
Right,
temperature of a liquid metal bath or graphite block to several thousand degrees.
right,
Several thousand degrees?
right,
But then apparently what they can do is they essentially have you take that stored heat to a metal film or filament, and the heat actually makes that glow like a light bulb, and it then emits light, and then that light is converted to electricity. So it's you basically turn the heat into light and then the light into electricity, and it's about getting the right materials and combinations to take X amount of heat and turn it into X amount of electricity. And the too long didn't read is this dude's experiments. It looks like he can take about 46% of the total energy and convert it from heat to electricity, which is pretty damn good. Considering that the same technique not that long ago was just a
yeah.
cut like 6%.
I mean, one of the things that people who haven't really dug into it don't realize is solar panels, for example. Yes, they generate electricity. For the size of the solar panel and the amount of electricity it could generate, there's a ton of loss. It's like you get like 9 or 10% last time I looked into this out of that panel of what it could generate. There's that much loss, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, that has to be stored in a thing, which has more loss. And there was a point where people who had solar basically had it to say they have solar, right? It was almost not worth it. That's, of course, changed over time. But I was talking to my dad, who has an electrical engineering degree, but of course is not up to the minute nowadays. He's older and retired. He's not quite into the industry like he used to be. But he's like, solar panels were a joke back then. Like back
Oh yeah.
when he was learning. They were just like, yeah, they're a cool technology. They have no practical use at all. And he's still stuck in
One
that
day
mindset,
they might
right?
be helpful.
Yeah. Well, now we're getting to the point where they're kind of helpful. But then you have all these other problems, and this is one of them, and it's cool that we're getting closer to a solution. So you're right. Almost 50% of that heat energy back into electricity. That is kind of cool, right? That's like kind of a breakthrough. It sounds like, oh, but I've lost 50% of the energy. Sure, you have, but it's better than having lost 70% of the energy, which is maybe where we were before. Right? I don't know
Yeah.
if you give you numbers as to how much of an improvement this is over where we used to be. But that's pretty cool.
We used to, the original tech based on this, and I closed the window by mistake. It was single digit.
Yeah.
It was single digit, maybe 6%.
Right. So that's huge. Right. And,
Huge.
you know, maybe this breakthrough in 10 years leads to 80% of that energy. Right. Maybe in another 10 years, it leads to 98% of that energy. Right. And we just get better and better as it goes. So cool stuff. Just looking at chat quick. I don't know if the stream's ever recovered for folks. But,
I don't think that. I think we're
you'll
just in pure podcast mode.
You'll
right
just
now.
have to go listen to the show afterward. And those of you that are listening to the show afterward, you're like, what are they talking about? This has been fine. It works perfectly. Hopefully it does. Otherwise, I'm going to shoot
This is the way you're
myself in
meant
the
to
foot then.
consume a podcast.
Yep.
I'm sure it's fine.
All right. So that is the news for tonight. Surprisingly, I don't think we went entirely too late. What are we, like an hour and 20? Where's the
I
timer?
don't know.
Where the hell's the timer? No, we're right at an hour and 10. And we're at the end of the
All
show.
right. Well, let's close it down then.
All right, folks. So I hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. If you did not already listen to part A of the show, go back and listen. We talked all about health for office, quote unquote, office workers or desk workers. I thought it was a cool a good conversation about trying to stay healthy while being tied to a desk. And I don't mean that literally, although we did talk about that too. Totally different career path. All right, if you want to watch this thing live, you can do so on YouTube or Twitch. Just look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast on both of those platforms. You can find links for it, of course, in the description of the show. Or just go to ironsysadmin.com. We've got links to all that stuff from there. We've also got links to our Discord community. Discord! And on there, you can chat with a whole bunch of like-minded nerds and geeks and even talk about gaming if you want to.
Nerds!
Hey,
nerds! Oh,
that's
Revenge of the Nerds?
That's what we could try to do. We could stream on Discord if we wanted to. And we could try that. I don't know.
Why haven't we tried that yet?
No, the thing we were talking about with the game, with the Valheim idea.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, I was tinkering when we were setting up for the show tonight. I can take the output from OBS and our mics and send them to Discord. So maybe we'll try that in the future. But then it's dependent on OBS, which I was thinking about tinkering with because that's a subscription fee. Never mind. We'll talk about that sometime we're not recording. Anyway, right. If you want to find us on social media, you can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. Just look for the Iron Sysadmin podcast. If you want to support us, you can do so on Patreon, patreon.com/IronSysadmin, or you can go buy merch on Teespring, teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. You think I'd remember all these URLs by now after saying them for like 5 years?
You would think.
Yeah. I kind of have them memorized. Most of them. All right. I think that's a wrap. What do you think? Any final thoughts there, Mark?
Nah. But my mic goes up and down. My mic goes up and down and side to side.
Should we?
It does side to side better.
Folks, I want to hear a vote. Should we digitize Uncle Mark when he dies and put him in the metaverse
Nobody wants that.
so he can sing show tunes to us in some weird digital
Well, maybe some people want that.
representation of Uncle Mark?
I question your judgment if that's something you want. But, you know, it's all good.
All right, folks. I'm gonna just out of habit here. I'm gonna put the stream to the goodbye page, but I'm pretty sure no one's gonna see it. But you know, see you, folks.